Hi, everyone. I am Shireen McSpadden. I'm the Director of the Department of Homelessness and Supportive Housing, and I'd like to welcome all of you here tonight. We have a really impressive interest in this issue, and we already know that we're going to have to at least have another big community meeting, and so we will be announcing that tonight. So if you know people who didn't get to make, who are not going to get to make a comment or get in, we will have another meeting. This is the very beginning of our community engagement process with respect to Hotel Buchanan. And again, I want to thank all of the interest and very clear concern about what the city is planning to do in this case. So I'm glad people are here to hear our presentation, and we're going to make this a real listening session so we can hear from all of you about your concerns or what you think is positive about this plan, what the city could be doing differently if that's the case. I want to really respect those of you in the Japanese community who have really made your concerns clear to us already, and I know we'll continue to. It was a really good reminder to me to hear and be reminded about the history of the Japanese community in San Francisco and why people are concerned about the possibility of losing out on the cultural district and some of the commerce that takes place in the community. Those are all really good concerns, and I'm glad that they've come out already and that we will continue to engage with those concerns. This is one of 4 hotels that the city is proposing to acquire to create permanent supportive housing. As I think everybody knows, we have lots of homeless people on our streets in San Francisco, and not just in certain neighborhoods, they are everywhere. And we're trying to find ways to create geographic equity by acquiring hotels across the city that really fit the bill in serving people who are going to be newly housed and new renters in specific neighborhoods. And so that is our plan with this hotel. But again, this is at the very beginning. We have had conversations with the owner of the hotel, and those were privileged conversations with our acquisitions team. But now we really need to hear from all of you, and that's planned in this next phase of this process. So I thanks again to all of you who are here. We look forward to your comments. And when we can't get through everything, we will make sure we find other ways to collect them. And so now I want to pass it over to Emily Cohen, who's the Deputy Director for Communications and Legislative Affairs for HSH, and she's going to lead us through a presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Director McSpadden. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate how many people from the community have turned out tonight for this incredibly important discussion. And I'm going to talk quite briefly. I'm going to share some slides that are an overview of the proposal. Just we're all working from the same set of facts, and then really have this be a listening session. We will stop talking and hear directly from community members about your feedback and thoughts on this proposal. So Bryn, if you could start the slides, that would be great. Thank you. I do want to start by just giving some public comment instructions. I think many folks have already started to do this, but if you put your name into the Zoom chat, you don't have to type your whole comment, just type your name. This will form a queue. An HSH staff person will call your name, and each person will have 2 minutes to make public comment. If you'd prefer to give your public comment in writing, you can email us at the email address on your screen. We are also Facebook Living this because we know that the Zoom room fills up, and so people can leave a comment there as well. When you log off of the Zoom meeting, there'll be a survey that pops up, and you're welcome to give comment there as well. And then finally, in order to ensure that we continue to hear everybody's voices on this subject, we will have a second community meeting on September 8th. And this will be an opportunity to continue this discussion. I know that we will not get through everybody's comments tonight, and so definitely want to make sure that these other avenues are available to everyone, and we will absolutely reconvene on the 8th. I don't need to explain the homelessness crisis probably to anybody in this room, but we have as you all well know, that we have an affordable housing crisis in our community, and it is most acute for our most vulnerable residents. Every day, the city and county of San Francisco's shelters and houses over 14,000 people, and yet we still see tremendous need in our community. Right now, we're at a very unique time in our city. We have a confluence of exciting funding opportunities that include Our City, Our Home, as well as brand new state resources. And these resources are giving us a new opportunity to acquire existing buildings to convert into housing. By buying existing buildings, either hotels or residential buildings, we're able to open much needed housing more quickly and more affordably than we would building from scratch. So to take advantage of this unique opportunity, the city has identified 4 potential projects across the city, which would bring.
Be happy to change places. Hi, you can.
Thank you. 4 potential properties across the city to acquire, to add over 360 units of new housing to our community, and ensuring that these housing opportunities are throughout the city is very important to us, as we know the housing crisis impacts everyone. Permanent supportive housing, which is the proposal for these 4 properties, is one of our most effective tools for addressing the homelessness crisis. Permanent supportive housing is a best practice because through it, we're able to stabilize people in housing and help them integrate into the community, becoming tenants, becoming neighbors, becoming residents, and an integral part of each neighborhood where they live. Permanent supportive housing is not shelter. Permanent supportive housing is long-term homes for people in our community. This includes people will have leases and tenants and all the rights and responsibilities that come with being tenants. We will have 24/7 on-site staffing, on-site social services that are customized to meet the unique needs of each tenant, and each building will be professionally managed. Again, I want to reiterate that this proposal is not for a homeless shelter, but for 131 long-term homes for people in our community. Permanent supportive housing is incredibly effective at stabilizing the lives of people experiencing homelessness. And Brenda is one example of one of our newest tenants in permanent supportive housing. She was living on the streets, on and off the streets for most of her life. And Brenda was really struggling to find stable housing. When the pandemic started, we were able to bring Brenda into a shelter-in-place hotel, so she was able to shelter safely and avoid the spread of COVID-19. And through that process, we've been able to house her in a long-term permanent supportive housing building. When I spoke with Brenda about what she liked best about her new home, she said it was her ability to cook meals and to feed herself the nutritious food through home-cooked meals. And so I want to share Brenda's story just briefly to really highlight the importance of stable housing in our community. This particular proposal to purchase the property at 1800 Sutter Street came to us through a request for information that the city put out to interested property owners. And one of the reasons this property rose to the top is that it has characteristics that make it especially good for conversion to housing, including high quality construction, large rooms, private bathrooms, community outdoor space, and amenities such as offices and meeting rooms. The scale of 130 rooms not only provides housing for many residents, but also allows for efficiency of operations. Although we've heard a number of concerns related to the location of this property, the characteristics of this building are also incredibly attractive for conversion into housing. As I mentioned before, this property came to us through a request for information that the city put out, and it was identified as a possible acquisition because of its condition, price, location, and ability to meet the needs of the homeless population. In terms of next steps, I've gotten lots of questions already about process. And we are at, as Shireen mentioned at the beginning, we are at the very beginning of our community process. We are having our meeting today. We will have a second meeting on September 8th. I want to be very clear that this is not a done deal. This is not decided upon. This is a proposal that has to go before the Board of Supervisors and requires the mayor's approval as well. So we are in the early stages of engaging with the neighborhood, with the community to hear questions and concerns. When we move forward, it will go to the Board of Supervisors. There will of course be a hearing and a final vote. Additionally, we need to go through a public solicitation process to select an operator and service provider for this site. So this has not yet been conducted, and it will only be conducted should we move forward with the acquisition, but we would solicit proposals from nonprofit service provider and property management organizations to manage the site. All dates concerning public meetings, hearings, etc., will all be posted on the HSH website. I do want to just let you know that we have some folks here today to listen to your public comment. Supervisor Preston, Director McSpadden, myself, Captain Yep from Northern Station. We're all here to listen to your feedback, and just want to reiterate for folks to please put your name into the chat, and we will call on you to give your public comment. If folks have joined since we launched the meeting, here are the interpretation language channel instructions once again. We do ask that you select your preferred language so that we can do the translation for the public comment. I will stop there. Thank you guys all very much for being here. I also want to thank the Japantown community leaders who I've been in so much conversation with, and really appreciate their thoughtful guidance and feedback as we move through this process. So deep appreciation for your input already and your guidance, and we look forward to hearing from all of you tonight. Thank you.
Our first speaker for public comments.
我哋第一個公共評論發言人。
All right, I'll have some.
Our first speaker is Lori Yamauchi.
Pinakauna ay si Lori Yamachi.
Lori Yamachi.
Lori Yamauchi, you have 2
Lori
minutes.
Yamachi, meron kang 2 minuto.
Good evening. My name is Lori
Magandang
Yamachi.
gabi. Ako
Hi,
si
Lori
Lori
Yamachi.
Yamachi.
I am speaking tonight as a
So
member.
nagsasalita ako ng gabi
我今
bilang
日咧係作為
I'm getting feedback
社區嘅代表。
here
ay,
from
may
the
naririnig ako
interpreter. That's supposed
mula
to
sa
be the case.
nagsasalin.
Anyway.
Hey
I'm a
everybody,
third
can we
generation
hold,
Japanese American.
could we hold
and
just one
resident-
moment?
Yeah.
Excuse me, I'm so sorry to cut you
Okay.
off. We'll give you your full 2 minutes
唔好
back.
意思，
Just give us
要
one
停一
moment to
停。
work out the glitch in our language channels.
我哋
Hey
咧
Patty,
Yes.
you have the
yes,
controls over the
so-
interpretation. Could you please take a
Yeah.
moment to figure out how to get all the interpreters in their correct channel? And then we can turn it over to Lori
因
for
為
her
我哋
full 2
咧
minutes.
Okay.
聽到
What- Interpreters, one moment, please. Stop interpreting, one
我哋
moment.
再
Yeah, whoever is the
Sorry,
host,
hi,
you
Kyle.
have to assign the person to the language channel.
Yeah,
Only
thank
the
you,
host can do
Nicholas. Patty is currently our host, and I think she's doing so right away. We really apologize for the technical difficulties that have
唔好意思，
All
因為有
interpreters?
一啲
Right now, please, one moment.
有啲技術問題啊，喺翻譯嘅方面，請各位等一等，稍等。
So this is the section where we're gonna do only public comments. And I would like to ask the people that are interpreters in the channels for only them to interpret what is being said in English. Thank you very much. Everybody, all the interpreters that are not assigned interpretation right now and are in the main room, please do not interpret. Thank you.
Okay, Patty, if things are all set, then we'll turn it back over to
我諗
Lori.
我哋咧可以繼續啦，而家嚇。
All right. Yikfai, I think that you are still in the English channel. If you could figure out how to get back back into your channel or turn off your audio for this comment, that would be great. Thank you.
I don't have a choice to go back to the Chinese channel.
Okay, would you mind muting yourself for this comment and we'll figure it out
Okay.
on the back channel while we give Lori her time to speak? Thank you. Lori, apologies. Please go ahead. We're restarting your timer.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Lori Yamauchi. I'm speaking tonight as a member of the public. I'm a third generation Japanese American and resident of District 9 in San Francisco.
でこの辺の住宅に住んでいる、このサンフランシスコの住人です。失礼しました。
One moment, please.
Yeah, what a mess.
At this time, I'm going to ask all the interpreters to stop interpreting.
通訳
Stop
は、
interpreting.
Let's mute for this question, please,
お願いします。
Patty.
はい、わかりました。Japanese interpreter will get off.
Thank you.
Okay.
Lori, hoping third time is the charm here. Our apologies.
Okay, sorry. Okay, good evening. My name is Lori Yamauchi. I'm speaking tonight as a member of the public. I'm a third generation Japanese American and a resident of District 9 in San Francisco. By profession and training, I am a city planner with a 38-year career here in San Francisco. I wish to speak tonight to the proposed change of use involved in the acquisition of the Hotel Buchanan and its conversion from a tourist hotel to permanent supportive housing. The Hotel Buchanan site sits in the Japantown Special Use District of the San Francisco Planning Code, which was established to maintain the cultural and historic integrity and neighborhood character of Japantown. The SUD requires that any change in use in excess of 4,000 gross square feet be subject to conditional use authorization by the Planning Commission. This means that the Planning Commission must find that the change in use is compatible with the cultural and historic integrity of the Japantown SUD. So I have the following questions. Will this change of use be subject to the Japantown Special Use District controls and require Planning Commission approval? If so, is the proposed change of use compatible with the cultural and historic integrity and neighborhood character of the Japantown Special Use District? Another aspect of this proposed change in use has to do with the Planning Commission resolution that was approved last year. It centered planning on racial and social equity. In this resolution, the Commission acknowledged and apologized for the history of inequitable planning policies that have resulted in racial disparities. It condemned and apologized for government practices that have resulted in and continue to have disproportionate impacts upon people of color. It also directed its staff to center the voices of communities of color in the development of plans, policies, regulations, and investment strategies. So in light of the historic patterns of city policy and action that has harmed Japantown and other communities of color, and the City Planning Commission's acknowledgement of those harmful effects, is this proposed city action consistent with that Planning Commission resolution number 20738? I respectfully
Lori,
request.
we're at time right now. Thank you so much for your public comment.
Our next speaker is Robert Sakai. You have 2 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Robert Sakai. I'm a third generation resident of San Francisco. I was born and raised in San Francisco's Japantown, and I am a property owner in San Francisco's Japantown. I am opposed to the current process that we are discussing. I believe the city has not given the community adequate time to express our feelings on this subject. The process feels and appears to be moving very fast, and that is troubling to me. I'm very concerned that the permanent closing of one of our two tourist hotels will have a significantly negative economic impact on our small retail businesses who are struggling. The city needs to address this economic issue. It has not appropriately done so to my knowledge to date. Thank you very much for allowing me to comment. I'm done.
Thank you for your comment.
Teresa Ono, you are our next speaker.
Teresa.
2 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Teresa Ono, and I'm a San Francisco resident and born and raised here. As a San Francisco Public Library Commissioner, I fully understand the city's need for supportive housing, as SFPL is the first in the nation to employ health and safety associates dedicated to assist our patrons with social service support. But as a Japantown resident and the granddaughter of the oldest family-run business in Nihonmachi, I do not want the city to purchase the Buchanan Hotel. Do not destroy Japantown again, like what happened in the 60s with redevelopment. During the pandemic, Nihonmachi's small businesses experienced financial hardship due to the lack of tourism in San Francisco, and many of the businesses closed. By not allowing the hotel to continue as a destination for tourists, Japantown and its businesses will further endure financial ruin. Please do not allow this to happen to Japantown again. Do not sell Hotel Buchanan. Thank you for your consideration, and thank you to the speakers before me.
Thank you for your comment.
Our next speaker is Judy Hamaguchi.
Oh, Judy.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Judy Hamaguchi. I'm on the board of directors of the San Francisco chapter of the Japanese American Citizens League, a civil rights organization started in 1929. The headquarters is located at 1765 Sutter Street. I grew up in Japantown pre-redevelopment and witnessed the demolition and the raising of a whole neighborhood. Friends, families, thriving small businesses, including my mom and dad's restaurant on Buchanan, were forced to close with a stipend towards moving expenses. Most were unable to return. A neighborhood that the city had directed them to, even though it had been designated a blighted and ghetto area. Redevelopment was a large-scale destruction of a neighborhood. Now we start to lose it block by block. We are now 4 blocks. The duty to preserve Japantown has been passed on from generation to generation, knowing just how fragile it is. Now we find that we have to go through another battle to save what's left of this community, its history, and its culture. The sale of the Buchanan Hotel will have more devastating effects on our economy and survival. The city's promise is not being kept and compounds our struggle. To proceed during the pandemic appears opportunistic and a rush to meet deadlines without proper notice. Are we being asked to choose between our preservation of a community and our humanity? I think that's unreasonable in this case. So please, I ask you, stop the sale. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Kenta Takamori.
My name is Kenta Takamori. I'm a resident of District 2. I hold the Chartered Financial Analyst designation, and based on my estimates and analysis, the loss of this hotel will result in a loss of $13.3 million in annual ancillary spending by hotel guests. $13.3 million is a staggering amount of lost spending for the small retailers and restaurants in Japantown. These small businesses that struggled through the pandemic do not deserve to be punished further by city action. I have 3 more brief points. 1, taxpayers' money should not be used to cushion the exit of the private equity fund that owns the Buchanan Hotel. 2, I'm dismayed by this proposal, which ignores, dismisses, and overlooks historical past promises to protect the Japanese American and Asian American communities. And 3, I'm deeply disturbed by the callousness of public policy approaches that pit the needs of one marginalized group of people against another. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Alice Kawahatsu, and after Alice will be Richard Hashimoto. First is Alice. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Alice Kawahatsu, and I'm a 3rd generation Japanese American. I'm also a longtime resident of over 35 years in the Japantown community, which is District 5. And I'm an active community member of Japantown. I want to say that I am, first of all, surprised that I did not get a notice in the mail I found out through one of my community meetings, and that's how I found out about this meeting. But I am against the selling of 1800 Sutter Street from the city for permanent supportive housing. This will take away from the tourists and guests who come to stay in Japantown, where they want to support the Japanese American community and its rich history and legacy. I also wanted to say that the hotel has provided for many years a place for our guests, not only for the people who come to our parades from Japan, but also to our ministers who come to Japantown for seminars and meetings. The merchants and the restaurants and businesses have had devastating impacts since the pandemic, and this will not help with the infrastructure needed to recover from all this. Permanent means permanent. That means nothing can be changed once the city buys this hotel. I worry and fear that this hotel will eventually be knocked down and made into a high rise, which will house more people that will not be putting money into our community. So please reconsider both the hotel people and District 5 Supervisor. Please listen to our pleas and consider what we're saying. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Richard Hashimoto with the Japantown Merchants Association. And we are very upset that the city is proposing to take away a valuable source of income for the merchants. The hotel was constructed to be made affordable to attract vacationing families and visitors to Japantown, while its sister hotel, the Miyako Hotel, catered mostly to the business and upper class visitors. In our estimate, the Buchanan Hotel generates over $2.7 million to Japantown's economy, and that's a very conservative number. We have not recovered from the shutdown, and now you are proposing to take away this valuable source of income from us that will heavily impact the merchants. The shutdown caused the pandemic, forced many of our longtime merchants to close permanently. Some merchants also chose to Japantown because of the two hotels. This acquisition will cause those and many more merchants to close that cannot survive further loss in income. We have nothing against the homeless or housing the homeless, and we feel they do deserve a better chance at life. But the sale of the hotel will take away the livelihoods of our merchants, endangering the survival of Japantown. My family was a victim of the redevelopment era of the 60s and 70s, when the city exercised its eminent domain powers and evicted hundreds of families and businesses from Japantown and the Fillmore neighborhoods. As a victim, I say you should be ashamed of yourself at even considering this site and jeopardizing these historic communities. Did you not learn your lessons from the injustices that the city served during the urban renewal? Only through the perseverance and sacrifices of our Issei and Nisei generation were we able to survive urban renewal by preserving what little we have left today. Just for your information, before urban renewal, Japantown measured 24 blocks and was much larger than that before the war. Other city agencies and departments are now realizing the great harm they caused and are trying to right a wrong to preserve this historic community.
I'm sorry, we're at time. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Our next speakers are John Osaki, and then after John will be Takeshi Moro.
Hello, John Osaki, Executive Director of the Japanese Community Youth Council. I first want to say that I personally know and work with many of the homeless service providers in San Francisco, have served homeless youth in some of our programs, so I fully appreciate the needs and the concerns around this issue. In this particular case, I have to stand with my fellow nonprofit here in San Francisco, Nihonmachi Little Friends. The very sad reality is that placing a permanent supportive housing site next door to a childcare center is putting that entity in jeopardy. It's putting their long-term sustainability in question. And I don't say that lightly, and they will speak later, and they can speak for themselves on the issues that they've encountered. But that is the fact, and that's not an issue of morality. That is not being anti-homeless. That is just the honest truth. My organization runs 2 childcare centers, and I know for a fact that if there were permanent supportive housing sites right next door to my centers, it would make some families think twice about which childcare center to enroll in, and that could have devastating impacts for this organization. So I have to stand with them. I have to point out that this is a real possibility, and I ask you to consider that when making this decision about this site. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Hi, my name is Takeshi Moro. I'm a resident of Bayview, San Francisco. I'm a father of two daughters, 3 and 5-year-olds. My wife and I have been taking our kids to Nihon Machi Little Friends preschool for the past 3 years, and will continue to do so for the next 2 years. I've witnessed firsthand what John had been talking about. This facility, proposed facility, is directly next to the preschool, no buffer whatsoever. The teachers and staff have been picking up needles, human waste, deal with trespassing, vandalism. As a parent, I'll give you an example. 2 weeks ago, I had to seek shelter at the preschool because a man kept following myself and my daughter, shouting racial profanity around this facility. And this was just the most recent incident, and I'm afraid it's not isolated, and other parents have experienced similar dangerous situations. I think we need sensible guidelines. The city shouldn't buy a hotel next to this school, a preschool. Do you know that at capacity, it has 100 3 to 5-year-olds? I'll repeat, 100 kids, 3 to 5-year-olds, okay? I'm here today because I'm speaking up for the kids, the 100 kids who do not have a platform to voice their concerns on this matter. They shouldn't have to run away from people spewing racial hate and anger at them. How do I explain that to my daughter? What do you think I said to her when we had to flee 2 weeks ago? Please, please do not do this. It's just common sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Steve Nakajo, and then Aaron Kumura. Steve.
Thank you very much, Supervisor President, Director Maspadden, Captain Yip, Martha Cohen. My name is Steve Nakajo. I'm the Executive Director of the Japantown Task Force and Japantown Cultural District. For transparency, I'm a 25-year member of the San Francisco Fire Commission. I'm giving my comments this evening as a public citizen and as a person that was born in terms of the atmosphere and the ambiance of the history, culture, tradition of Japantown. In my 75 years, I've been there in our community, worked professionally in the last 48 years with seniors, with different concepts of JCBD, with the JTF Cultural District, as well as Task Force, promoting all of these concepts of culture, history, tradition, language, celebration, and primarily because of our CHESS document, as well as our soon-to-be adopted CCHESS document that provides for us a roadmap in terms of our vision within the community. This plan does not work in that aspiration. This plan does not fit within the cultural district aspects. This plan does not work in a footprint of 4 blocks reduced by the remnants of redevelopment during the 60s and the 70s in terms of the total destruction, followed by the forcible removal of 110,000 Japanese Americans, with San Francisco's Japantown being the first in the nation, as well as our cultural destination. In terms of concept and scope, the change of use does not fit within this concept. The hotel is a revenue generated income for not only Japantown, but also for San Francisco. And that hotel serves as a cultural aspect in terms of our community as well. In terms of that fitting within our culture, our promotions, and trying to recover from COVID, this project does not fit, does not work. I stand with my people and my community in the endeavor of stopping this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Erin Kimura.
Hi, y'all. My name is Erin Kimura. I am born and raised here on Ramatusha Ohlone land, particularly in what is known as District 5 and across the city. I'm speaking on behalf of myself as an aunt of nibblings that go to Nihomachi Little Friends, as well as someone who has come from a long lineage of small businesses in the city and in Japantown, and then also from Japantown for Justice. Anywho, long story short, I am not going to re-explain redevelopment, displacement, the forced displacement of Indigenous folks on here, because y'all already know that. I feel like this process of giving us 1 month and just like, oh yeah, by the way, we're going to buy this. And it's like, sure, already when we're a community that has dealt with a very long context and delicate history of trauma and general mistrust in the city government and local government. I think this is honestly the impact of what's happening and how the city is going through this, is we are being pigeonholed into a binary of either being anti-homeless or for the homeless. So that's one thing. Another thing, so I just do not vibe with the city process at all whatsoever. There could have been more transparency in the entire situation. There could have been we have no understanding of what the entire rollout looks like. Many people were notified right before, like a week before, and now it's going to go to the Board of Supervisors no later than September 20th. That's short, and that's also really like traumatizing for a community that's already hanging by a string. So that's one. But I want to say that I believe all people, all humans have the right to housing, quality housing, as long as this process considers the dignity of all the people involved. And so there is no collaboration here. So I want to say that. I also want to say, I do note that tourism and the fact that Japantown has been dependent on tourism is also based on the redevelopment plans that went down. And
Thank you very much for your comment. We're at time.
That the city has objectified us. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin.
Thank you.
Mia Summers, and then Ed Schrager, and then Lois Scott. Mia Summers, you have 2 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Mia Summers, and I am a Gose, meaning that I would like to acknowledge that I'm a 5th-generation settler, a 3rd-generation settler on Ohlone territory, and reminding us all to be cognizant that the first displacement and the first destruction of community that happened here started with the colonization, and from it, we have inherited the violence of private property and the dismantling of collective community. I'm a member of Nikkei Resistors, Japantown for Justice, and I'm currently a master's student in San Francisco State's Asian American Studies program. I come here believing that housing is a human right and that all people deserve housing, healthcare, food, and dignity. I come here honoring the words of activist Yuri Kochiyama and that tomorrow's world is yours to build. I believe that the conversion of the Buchanan Hotel into housing for the most disenfranchised of our community is the way to build the Japantown of tomorrow. I understand that this process is happening quickly, but this is the nature of privately owned land, and hope that the city will commit to active partnership in developing a holistic approach to housing in Japantown. This used to be apartments that house members of our community, so I believe this could be a moment to return to having a Japantown be a place for the community that lives here and not just focusing on tourists. I see this as an opportunity to right some of the wrongs of World War II mass incarceration and the displacement through redevelopment. I do not understand why I've been hearing that this will harm our community, as if these are not our people, our relatives, and our community. We should be actively working to make sure all of our community is housed, has access to mental health and other quality of life services. I'm inspired by models like in Little Tokyo, such as the conversion of the Far East building into housing, which also included the Far East Lounge, which now serves as multi-purpose gathering for seniors and other members of the community. I would like to ask that similarly, the city works with us in Japantown to create examples like I mentioned from Little Tokyo, to commit to holistic services and thoughtful partnerships, as well as organizations who are willing to imagine dynamic programs that will ensure the longevity of Japantown. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ed Schrager.
Hi, everyone. Look, I want to start off by saying a big thank you for the city and all of the city workers to try to tackle the homeless problem. I think everyone in the city knows it's a problem, and there are people on this call that are trying to tackle it. So thank you. I also think that everyone on this call wants to work together as a community. We have a few hundred people on this call trying to do this. We're trying to solve this problem to get as many homeless people as possible using the budget available into shelters. However, it is extremely clear from the public backlash against this project that this is not the right use of funds. There have been thousands of people within 24 hours signing a petition and joining a call like this, explaining how against this project they are, and everyone lives in the area. I agree and second everything that's been spoken to date by my neighbors. I am a local resident and I strongly disagree with this proposal, purely based on the lack of information available to the public that justifies this going forward. My two main questions are, is this project the most efficient use of funds? This hotel is a nice property in a highly valued area. Will the city provide extensive diligence on how they determine this site was the best use of funds to help as many people as possible? And that's critical, as many people as possible with the funds, not just throwing money at a hotel that will solve 131 units and hope for the best. You have also requested public commentary, and within 24 hours, as I've mentioned, thousands of people have signed a petition to stop this from happening, and hundreds have joined this call. What factors would stop the city from continuing this project and not steamrolling a very clear negative public reaction?
Thank you for your comment.
Lois Scott, and then Curtis Wu.
Good evening. My name is Lois Scott. I'm a 3-decade resident of Japantown in one of the middle-income residential complexes in District 5, adjacent to Japantown. I acknowledge the need for more dispersal of supportive housing for homeless throughout the city, especially in locations where appropriate supportive services are located. But conversion of a former tourist hotel at 1800 Sutter does not support the public policy that created the present Japantown in partial reparations for forced relocation of the Japanese population during World War II. There would be a much more ideal location in utilizing excess CPMC hospital rooms vacated when the hospital created a new building at Geary and Van Ness. Locating a homeless population with medical and psychological needs at the north end of Buchanan Mall risks destruction of an existing fragile set of people, Asian children and elders, and very close by specialized commercial and cultural institutions serving them and the broader community. This includes Nihamachi, the Komochi program serving seniors, other nonprofits, the Buddhist churches and national headquarters, the specialized restaurants and bakeries, Forest Books, which is also a Zendo on weekends. Buchanan Mall itself is now a safe refuge for visitors and for neighborhood pedestrians, and a major urban design assets and gathering spot and linkage to Japantown's Peace Plaza. The hotel itself was always planned to serve visitors and tourists, which are a part of the economic foundation of this community. We are also a part of medical complexes, which could be a much better support for this needed supportive housing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Curtis Wu.
Hi, everyone. My name is Curtis Wu. I'm a Japantown resident. I live just 3 blocks from the hotel. I've been listening, and I think there are a lot of valid concerns, about the community process, even how the Zoom was set up, like having to wait 8 minutes to get on was kind of not good. I still want to learn more, but I'm just in general supportive of more affordable housing for our most vulnerable communities. I'm hearing a lot about Japantown being a tourist destination. I know there's no disputing that. But I also do know it's also a resident destination, like myself. Like I go to Benkyodo at least twice a week. So I think SF should be a place for all, not just tourists, but tourists and residents and businesses. This also means not just certain parts of the city, but every part of the city. So, I'm hearing a lot of fear, a lot of tropes about unhoused folks. And I just think a project like this, what it will do to uplift the community, supporting people who need housing, it's going to enhance the neighborhood, not degrade it. So thank you for hearing, and looking forward to learn more, but that's just kind of where I'm at right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Denny, you're on mute.
Thank you. I'm trying to get back to the top of the queue. My apologies. The next speaker is David Takashima, and then Susie Kagami. David Takashima, you have 2 minutes. David Takashima, you have 2 minutes for public comment.
Well, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
Go
okay.
ahead.
Okay, I'm David Takashima. I'm live in San Francisco for the last 20 years and active with a lot of nonprofits in Japantown. I'm also worked in government relations for over 40 years, worked for Governor Gray Davis as the Chief Director, Deputy Director of the Department of Finance, and worked with Mayor Ed Lee, working on planning projects and infrastructure projects for the city. And I worked closely with the Department of Planning on getting a $85 million infrastructure bond bill award to the city. One thing I worked on was the cannabis regulations in California and in the city. And one of the requirements for cannabis shops in the city is that you had to be so many yards distance from a childcare facility or schools. And I think that is something that is really a problem that I think needs to be investigated as you go forward. And also the other question I have is why do you look at tourist hotels as a good thing to take out of a community? We only have 2 tourist hotels in Japantown, and also tourist hotels provide revenue to the general fund, to the city. So I wish you to look at that. Otherwise, I suspect that these regulations were built and constructed with purpose to take out Buchanan Hotel. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Susie Kagami and I am the Japantown Cultural District Manager. But tonight I'm speaking as a parent raising my son in the Japantown community. That corner of Buchanan and Sutter is vital to the future of Japantown. My son grew up on that corner. It's where I parked to drop him off at Nihomachi Little's Friends when he was 3 years old. It was where at age 4, to my surprise, he suddenly spoke Japanese to the mom next to me waiting at the crosswalk. At age 10, he and his friends would walk from the steps of his Japantown after-school class past the hotel next door and go to the market across the street to buy a snack. Now in high school, he and his friends walk Japantown with pride and ownership. And I think this is what we want for the future of our Japantown. In the building next to the hotel, Nihomachi Little Friends cares for 60 to 100 children under the age of 5. That building also houses over 30 kids, grades K through 12, in our Japanese language after-school program. The community center is only 2 doors down and is the hub for youth and senior social activities and is open 7 days a week. When the city took over the hotel during pandemic shelter in place and turned it into housing, we parents were cautious and compassionate. Most of us were not in Japantown daily during the pandemic, but we heard about items being thrown from the balcony to the sidewalk where our preschoolers walk on their field trips. We heard about cars driving by, picking up residents in the hotel. And what I didn't know until this week was that the preschool manager encountered altercations and was picking up feces and needles in the mornings before the children arrived. The sidewalks and surrounding areas were not safe for our children and families. Last week, a senior asked a friend of mine if he could ask my friend if he could escort her across the street because she was afraid to pass that area. Japantown is one of the densest population of seniors in San Francisco, and I am concerned for their safety, which includes my father. The city failed to take care of that special corner and the people in our community who frequent it during the pandemic.
Thank you very much for your public comment. I'm afraid we're at time.
Tomo Hirai, and then Jeremy Chan. Tomo?
I'm with the press, so I forgo any time. Thank you.
Jeremy Chan, and then Amanda Jones. Jeremy?
Hi, my name is Jeremy Chan. I'm a Japantown community member and a member of several community organizations, including Japantown for Justice. I think the city's process for announcing this supporting housing program is appalling and completely unacceptable, and that this type of rush process is exactly what happened during redevelopment. And I see that once again, the city is silencing our community. I firmly believe that housing is a human right, and I strive to envision a world where all members of our community, including unhoused folks, have access to the support and resources they need to thrive. But the current process is such a far cry from that ideal world, and there are still too many questions that need to be that are left unanswered. Already, our community is having trouble working with the current provider of the temporary program. So how can we trust that the new provider will consider themselves as part of the Japantown community and work towards strong community relations? In addition, it was the city who evicted Japantown residents during redevelopment and forced our community's reliance on tourism. Can we trust that the city will provide substantial long-term support that our small businesses so desperately need right now, like rent relief, fee waivers, or tax exemptions? These are just some of the types of questions that need to be answered before we can even begin to have a conversation about this important topic. This program must serve the needs of Japantown, including its unhoused folks. But for the current process, I think it's clear that it's doing neither, and I cannot support the sale. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amanda Jones, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Amanda Jones. I'm a resident. I'm within 200 feet of the project, and I moved to the neighborhood in 2006. And one of the reasons why I moved here and why I picked this block was its proximity to Japantown. There's really nothing like it. And when you go out your door here, you definitely know you're in San Francisco. There's something very special about it. There's only 3 Japantowns in the entire country. And something that I don't think's been discussed yet, even though there's been some really good points and I've learned a lot, is that this is really a gateway to Asia. And I think that there are many people that want to invest in San Francisco and want to have a connection with San Francisco. I've spoken with a couple of venture capitalists and some people who are very involved with investors from abroad, from Asia specifically, and they actually have an interest in the hotel. So there's a part of me wondering, can we find a happy medium here? Can we keep the hotel? Can we get that investment, get that infrastructure in there, and can we build something bigger? I feel there are more open, empty units in other parts of the city, and I think we'd be better served, the tax dollars would be better served, purchasing something larger and perhaps not as fancy. So those are my comments, and I really appreciate everybody's civilness. The discussion on Nextdoor has just become a horrible conversation. And I really appreciate everybody on this call, even the people I disagree with. Thank you for presenting and making the time to be here.
Thank you.
Mary Ishisaki, Kathy Inamasu, and Grace Horikiri are next. We'll start with Mary Ishisaki.
Hi, everyone.
I'm Mary Ishisaki, and I am a property owner in the Buchanan Mall. I'm a resident of District 5, and I serve on many boards and forums in San Francisco and in Japantown. I am really concerned about our small businesses. Many of them during COVID have had no relief in rents and have struggled to stay on. Some have not made it, and the ones that have are on a thin string to stay open, to keep their employees employed, and to sell this hotel to the city, I think is just signing business out of the neighborhood. I know that I have a tenant in my building in Japantown, and we have been able to negotiate with her so that she can keep her restaurant open, and she is not going to have to pay back any monies that we decided would be forgiven. But not everybody can do that because they might have large loans on their building. And this is just another way of taking Japantown away from a community that has worked hard to establish it when they moved here in 1906 after the earthquake, when they had to move out of the downtown area. And then during redevelopment, my husband lost his business during redevelopment due to the tearing down of the area that he had his business in. They were given certificates. I still have the certificate, and it's probably worth less than a lot of toilet paper that you see on the street every now and then.
Thank you for your comment.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kathy Namasu. I'm the Executive Director of Neomachi Little Friends, whose preschool program is located next door to the Hotel Buchanan. When the hotel became temporary homeless supportive housing last year, I was very hopeful for its success, as there was definitely a need for it, especially during the pandemic, and to provide the hotel with needed revenue. Unfortunately, the reality of having this housing in the hotel has not been a positive experience for our preschool. Once the program opened, it immediately attracted more homeless to the neighborhood, and with this came more garbage, including alcoholic containers and drug paraphernalia and feces on the sidewalk and on our preschool property. Our staff works hard in the mornings to prepare the school for our young children and their families, keeping their access areas clean and safe while waiting in line to enter the building. In addition, a large number of seniors lined up early in the morning on the sidewalk to pick up lunch from the Kimochi food program next door. Therefore, the health and safety of the seniors, in addition to our children and families, must be maintained while dealing with often unruly individuals who are intoxicated or have mental health issues. The added burden of cleaning up the excess mess, as well as dealing with often aggressive individuals, asking them to move away from the entrance area, has been an added stress for our staff. The homeless housing staff at the hotel do not deal with any issues beyond their hotel facility. So if things happen outside, it's not their job. This is very frustrating, as the issues created by this housing then need to be taken care of by others in the community. For example, an intoxicated woman passed out on the sidewalk was a former hotel resident, but since she was no longer living at the hotel and not on their property, it wasn't their concern. There's definitely no support and a disconnect from the community. We've endured this stress knowing the homeless housing would only be temporary, but now the city must take responsibility to address the community's concerns. The hotel plays an essential role in the economic survival of Japantown and must remain a hotel for the best interest of the community, and in particular, our children and seniors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Grace Horikiri. I'm the Executive Director of the Japantown Community Benefit District. Through my work, I am also, in constant contact with our Japantown small businesses. And like many other merchant corridors, Japantown is still recovering from this pandemic. The loss of revenue from converting the hotel to a permanent supportive housing is going to be devastating. And also, we have to also remember there's going to be a lot of Buchanan staff that has been there for many, many years that are going to be losing their jobs as well. I am very concerned that many of our small businesses and we have many legacy businesses here, will not be able to hang on. I, along with our small businesses, also fear the backlash our community may face from raising our voices here today. So I'm really hoping that, we can resolve this, get this off the table. And thank you for letting me be able to speak.
Thank you.
Our next speakers are Mark Carrington, Richard Hashimoto, and Kevin Chin. Mark?
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. As a employee of a company, a small family company that owns a building in Japantown, we've seen what the of homelessness has had on our tenants. Our tenants and our property owners have made considerable investments in making Japantown a great place to visit. We know that there will be additional strains on security, some of the buildings there, and we've encountered that through the pandemic. One of the things that we have noticed also is that the city has no budget to secure property that it owns in that area, and therefore causes security problem, which led to incidents that put some of our tenants at risk at the beginning of this year. So I'd encourage the city to look elsewhere and for the Buchanan Hotel to remain as a hotel. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
This is Richard Hashimoto. I already gave my public comment. Thank you.
Kevin Chin, then Lori Yamauchi, and then Kathy Inamasu.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Chin. My family has operated businesses in Japantown since the 1960s. The hotel has always been a great source of customers since it was built. The proposed loss of this resource is highly damaging to the businesses in Japantown. I strongly urge you to reconsider this historic mistake. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Lori Yamuchi. I already spoke. Thank you.
This is Kathy Inamasu. I already spoke too. Sorry.
Yuji Uchida.
Hi, my name is Yuji Uchida. I have been working at Nihonmachi Little Friends preschool for 20 years now. I'm here to share one of my experiences out of many daily incidents with the hotel residents. So one morning, a man covered himself with white bed sheets from the hotel and was blocking our school entrance. I asked him very nicely to move because there were children and the families arriving at school. He replied by yelling F words at me. I noticed some children were getting out of their car with their parents, and they looked very scared and confused. I did not want any of our children to witness or hear his profanity. He got up and had a long screwdriver in his hand. It was a very scary moment to me. But I told him to move on for those children so they can come into the school. Eventually, he slowly walked away. This is just one example out of many, many of them. Like Kathy said, trash like syringes, needles, liquor bottles, shattered broken glasses, more feces, food waste, garbage bags, cigarettes. We have to clean up almost every single day after the hotel was taken over by the City Homeless Project. Moreover, some staff from the homeless housing drive their cars out of the hotel garage so fast without slowing down. We witnessed some incidents where some seniors were almost hit by their cars. Their guests and staff smoke right by our school. and I have to ask them to smoke across the street or move away because I don't want our children to inhale the smoke. Lastly, as a hotel is for the Japantown's tourism, as everybody mentioned, it is also a vital resource for Nihonmachi Little Friends children's learning. We used to visit the hotel with our children and interview people from all over the states and around the world. We hope these days will come back soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your public comment.
Lucy Fisher, Robert Fruchtman, and Emi Nakamura. So, Lucy Fisher, you have 2 minutes.
Hello, I'm Lucy Fisher, and I am a second generation Japanese American and a resident of District 8. I understand the need for supportive housing because I was a psychiatric nurse at San Francisco General for 13 years. But purchasing the Buchanan Hotel for that purpose, for supportive housing, makes very little economic sense. In a nutshell, the loss of 130 hotel rooms would result in a loss of over $1 million in hotel taxes a year, loss of jobs and revenue from the Buchanan Hotel and area restaurants, retail businesses, and entertainment venues. In addition, hotel taxes fund the city's grants for the arts, including community festivals and other cultural activities, such as our Cherry Blossom Festival and the Nihonmachi Street Fair. You know, guests at an SRO or other dormitory style arrangements are exempt from paying the hotel tax. So purchasing one of these for supportive housing would retain the city's hotel tax revenue and jobs and funding for arts and culture. Finally, those of you in HSS know our history of incarceration during World War II and heard the displacement of families during the 1960s redevelopment. I believe we can have both housing for the homeless that wouldn't have the impact, the economic impact of selling the Buchanan Hotel. So looking for and purchasing housing that doesn't qualify for the hotel tax would provide a space for the homeless to live in dignity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Robert?
Hi, my name is Robert Fruchtman. I live in District 5. You know, I as someone who lives in Lower Haight, you know, I do come to Japantown, you know, occasionally. And I would say that District 5 has, in the last, 10 years, been growing more wealthy. The district has been, I would say as a whole, the district is, is a good place for putting permanent supportive housing. If I've been hearing a lot of fear in this meeting. I think the real fear that we ought to have is what happens if we don't build permanent supportive housing. I don't think anyone wants to be, leaving needles or leaving, human waste on the streets. And one of the best ways to deal with that is to provide people homes so they can have dignity. If we leave people on the streets, then we are guaranteed to have more, crime, more poverty, more misery. If we want people to feel safe in their community, then we need to eliminate homelessness so that no one feels terrified of the people who have lost everything. The vast majority of the homeless in San Francisco are people who have lost their jobs or people who cannot afford to live here. It's up to us to solve this problem with compassion, not by saying that homeless people do not deserve to live near us, because they are our neighbors. They are our friends. They are our family. If this city is quote unquote dirty, it is only because we have not opened our hearts and our minds to how we can solve this problem together. So, I really support this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Emi Nakamura, Jamie Totsubo, and Cynthia Gomez. Emi?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
go ahead.
Okay, great. Hi, y'all. So my name is Emi Nakamura, born and raised San Franciscan from District 5. My parents and my sisters and I have been managing a family-owned restaurant in Japantown. Growing up here for the past 30 years, I've seen the neighborhood change so much. And first of all, I am in support of affordable housing. Being a born and raised San Franciscan, I have so much pride for this city, and it hurts to hear people constantly call it dirty, ugly, gross, because the city is magically weird in all of its magical, vibrant areas. And it's really important to have affordable housing. It's just the lack of transparency. My family and I, we had no idea about this Zoom meeting or that the Buchanan Hotel was going to be potential permanent housing until we got a paper pamphlet from one of the community members in Japantown. So I think like if this was going to happen or if this was going to be proposed, there should have been a lot more transparency. And also this is kind of triggering for a lot of folks who have been here for multiple generations because it's so fast paced and it's almost similar to what has happened with the gentrification in this neighborhood that everyone is well aware of. And it's just something that really needs to be talked about and looked at because it's important to move forward. Like you have to acknowledge it's right next to a grocery store that's family owned, right next to a preschool that I went to, right next to after school program, a community center for all Japanese folks of various generations. So it would be really great if there would be a lot more transparency and some acknowledgement from the city that our voices will be heard and there could be future talks that will not be rushed because by the end of September, having Board of Supervisors vote on this is really, really short. Okay, and is that time for me?
Thank
My
you.
time's up?
That
Okay.
is, thank you so
Okay.
much for your comment.
Thank you for your time.
Jamie Totsubo?
Hi, my partner and I, James Wong, have had an optometry practice for about 40 years now, and we're right across the street from 1800 Sutter. And you know, over these years, we've seen a lot of things, but the city has asked us to deal with a lot of ups and downs over the years, and what the economy has thrown at us. But most recently COVID, but you know, we've survived and you know, we've worked hard to make it work. Now recently it seems like by chance or by luck or whatever, you know, it seems like the ramen and sushi scene has a little bit revitalized Japantown, although you know, there are a lot of businesses that have been having a hard time. But it's kind of been a cool place to kind of hang out again, a little destination for eating and maybe shopping. And I also want to thank, you know, the Japantown CBD and of course Merchant Association, keeping it, you know, safe and clean. But anyways, people are coming back, and now people are coming back, and the city has new plans again. They want to change this. So I want to know what the city's plans are for J-Town. I mean, isn't this the touristy place that they wanted it to be when they relocated everyone, you know, all the residents out of there and displaced them by redevelopment? Isn't this what they wanted? And now, you know, now that we seem to finally see something going on, you want to take it away. You want to remove this hotel where tourists want to stay and visit our stores and restaurants. What the hell is the ultimate plan here? That's what I want to know. I mean, Japantown is centrally located. It's perfect. It's easy place to get downtown for shopping. You could take a Muni, you can get to Fisherman's Wharf in 10 minutes. You get to Union Square, Chinatown in 9 minutes. This plan just doesn't make.
Sorry, we're at time right now. Thank you so much for your public comment.
Cynthia Gomez.
Hello, my name is Cynthia Gomez. I'm a research analyst with Unite Here Local 2. We are the union that represents the workers at hotels, including the Hotel Buchanan. So over the past 40 years, this country has seen a devastating decline in the number of jobs that pay a living wage and that provide healthcare and a retirement with dignity. Until the pandemic, the Hotel Buchanan was one of them. The pandemic took a wrecking ball to so many jobs, and the hotel industry is using the pandemic to boost their profits by eliminating more good jobs. This is a direct quote from an executive. You don't want to let any crisis go to waste. They brag about saving tens of millions of dollars by cutting jobs permanently. We're seeing good jobs disappear, being turned into short-term gig work, no benefits, no job security, no chance at a retirement with dignity. And it's not just working people who lose, it's entire communities. Unfortunately, in this society, people cannot access their basic needs for food, shelter, medical care, just because they're human beings. It's only by having a good job that there's a fighting chance at having these things. And so we have to fight to protect those few good jobs that are increasingly disappearing. This deal would eliminate 32 of those. And so it would punish the people who've borne incredible hardship during this pandemic. I want to be very clear. Everyone deserves housing. Everyone deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. People who have to live outside are our fellow human beings. To hear them described as scary or dangerous or somehow any less deserving or of dignity than anyone else on this call is not how we want to be talking about our fellow human beings. It is incredibly important to find housing for people who need it. What is dangerous, frightening, and unhealthy is having to live on the streets, and it's not okay that so many of our fellow human beings have to live like this. Finding housing for people does not harm communities, it helps them. So please find hotels for this program that would not result in eliminating very precious good jobs, and therefore, ironically, making it less likely
Thank
that the
you so much
32
for your
workers
public
at the hotel.
comment. We're at time. Thank you so much for your comment.
Thank you.
Amanda Jones, Gavin McGrain, and then Jenny Friedenbach. Amanda Jones, you're first.
I don't need to speak. I spoke. Thank you.
Thank you. Gavin McGrain, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. So my name is Gavin McGrain. I grew up in San Francisco. I'm here with my wife today. I can tell you firsthand, having been a resident of San Francisco for 40 plus years, just how amazingly inclusive the Japantown area is. To keep this very short and sweet, I just want to kind of re-echo the statement that this is a terribly poor fit for the neighborhood. Neomachi Little Friends was a school for both my daughters. And excuse me, I'm a little choked up here. The idea that you have 3 and 5 year olds exposed to this kind of degradation is just really, it's not a good idea. Do you have anything to say?
I also think that, with all the restaurants around, we visit very often. We try to help during this pandemic because the culture there is amazing. And to have some tourists not be able to have access to this culture would be
well, it's not just the tourists, it's the people who grew up in the city.
Yes.
Everybody, has a chance to kind of experience and grow and learn about Japan and Japantown. It's really quite special.
And we also believe that everyone deserves housing, and we want to find a better solution, a better fit for our homeless community members as well. So yeah, it's a hard situation.
It's a hard situation, but again, I think that the fit is the biggest problem. You have elderly people, you have young people who are going to be right next to a facility that just won't be maintained the right way, right? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Jennifer Friedenbach, you have 2 minutes.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Friedenbach. I am a member of the Our City, Our Home Oversight Body, which oversees the use of Prop C funds, which is funding this project. I'm also a lover of Japantown. I raised my kids visiting on a regular basis. My kids also grew up surrounded by homeless people and have not been negatively impacted by that in the least. From the Oversight Committee's perspective, we did a lot of outreach and garnered input from over 800 people, most of them unhoused people. And what folks were asking for is geographic diversity in terms of the housing. They'd like units with bathrooms, kitchens. They wanted places that were safe and dignified. The conversion, the COVID situation brought an opportunity to convert hotels, which really provide an excellent and cost-effective way to do permanent housing. The per unit cost is much lower. They can be converted to studios. People can move in a much shorter period of time. They don't take 7 years to construct. And I just want to mention, folks are really in a serious amount of pain out there on the streets. People are dying prematurely due to homelessness. They're facing dehumanizing treatment on a daily basis. Currently, the hotel is housing homeless people. There are a lot of seniors up there, people who are at risk under COVID. They're disproportionately African American. They're also disproportionately people with disabilities. The folks who would move into this would be, the folks who would be able to stay here are likely going to be the seniors or the folks that would be able to remain. And then other folks would be moving in that are seniors or have disproportionate acuities from other hotels. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our next speakers are Anand Singh, Peter Hirschberg, and Tammy Bryant. Anand Singh, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'm Anand Singh, president of Unite Here Local 2, the Hotel Workers Union. Our union is very much in favor of the city's efforts to secure permanent supportive housing. We are, however, absolutely opposed to the acquisition of this particular site, a union hotel, for that purpose. You're going to hear, hopefully, from a number of our members at the Buchanan Hotel who will speak from their own hearts about the impact this potential sale will have on their livelihoods, on their families. These are men and women and people who have fought hard to ensure that the jobs at this hotel are well paid, provide fully paid health insurance, a good pension on which they can retire. And they are, in some cases, the very same workers who, during the pandemic, when this hotel was contracted as a shelter-in-place site, raised their hands when asked if they would work to become essential workers and help carry our city forward in a dark time. I am disturbed when I hear that assurances are being made that workers will be taken care of in the event of a sale. That is patently false. No overtures were made to us to negotiate over any potential job loss, which could materially impact the terms of any acquisition agreement that's been discussed so far. Even if that does occur, even if we do negotiate, there is no replacing these jobs for these workers. The bottom line is there is a human cost to this transaction, and we believe it's too high a price to pay. Service sector workers, largely people of color, struggle as it is to live and work in this city. Many are a paycheck away from joining the ranks of the unhoused themselves. Why would we remove some of the precious few good union jobs in this sector, even in the critical pursuit of addressing homelessness, when it would mean throwing working people out on the streets themselves? Our city can and must do better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Peter Hirschberg.
Hello, I'm Peter Hirschberg. I live on Bush Street, just a couple hundred feet from the proposed project, and I serve on the board of San Francisco's International Economic Development Agency, Global SF. We're focused on trade and investment, particularly from Asia. I'm also the author of Maker City, a handbook of small business and urban economic development. The last thing our city needs to do is decimate the heart of its Japanese community. Japantown's economic foundation is fragile. It's built on small business, on tourists and a meeting ecosystem, and also a flourishing asset for the city. Killing this cornerstone is actually antithetical to everything we know about urban economic development, multicultural communities, and creating opportunity. Fortunately, in the last few days, our Global Economic Development Agency has seen great interest from our Asian partners in purchasing this property, in working with the community to develop a stronger neighborhood and create something that would prevent economic collapse, evictions, and head off more poverty. This is a great opportunity to grow, And then the city can use its state funds for smarter, more wise projects.
Thank you for your comment.
Yeah.
Tammy Bryant, Betty Trainer, Don Mokwao. We'll start with Tammy Bryant. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Tammy Bryant. I've lived across the street, well, about 3 blocks away on the other side of Geary for over 40 years. I just wanted to actually say hello to Executive Director McSpadden, because I work at HSA and I was sad to see you leave us. But I know that your work heading up this agency will be very good for San Francisco. And so after, as I said, I've lived in the Fillmore for 40 years, and I just have to say that solving this homelessness crisis is really all of our duties to solve. Everybody always has a reason why they don't want to have, and I would say if homeless people are housed, they're no longer homeless, but that aside, everybody has a reason, like not in my neighborhood, not, and that seems to be the narrative that always dominates. And then it just gets harder and harder to build housing. I see this as 131 units. That's not going to cost $1 million a pop. I do believe that the community process is highly flawed. Nobody should have been taken by surprise. I did see this posted on Nextdoor, and that's the only way I knew about it. But I also think, we're doing a lot of othering, and that's hurting my feelings because, there's a lot of people really suffering on the streets, and I work with the homeless and I cry sometimes just seeing what they're going through. So I think we could look at these as 131 new customers, new consumers, new neighbors, people who give back to our community and make it a richer, better place. And then last thing I have to say is, yes, we owe the Japanese community deep, and we need to help the Japanese businesses and community get through this, overcome this pandemic and really deal with the crisis. But I am going to support purchasing this hotel. I want to get 131 people housed. I just think that's really important. And safety and cleanliness. Yes, we must have the right staffing. There's a lot of issues I agree with that are problems, but I want to look for the solutions that are not going to mean this can't happen. It just has to happen with community input and community benefits. Thank you.
Thank you.
Betty Trainer.
Yes, hello, thank you. I'm also a member of the Japantown community, live across the street at St. Francis Square Co-op. And I want to say first that I respect many of the comments made by the Japanese community, and I certainly understand that. I am also on the board of Senior and Disability Action, and I want to emphasize that there are so many seniors that are homeless, seniors and people with disabilities. Over half of the homeless population is 50 plus, and there's a growing number of homeless over 65 years old. We need a place for the seniors and people with disabilities to be. Being on the street is the worst, but they also can't be in a shelter. It's not the right place for seniors and people with disabilities. They need rooms similar to what they would get at the Buchanan Hotel, a room with their own bathroom and a little kitchenette that would be built in. It's really the ideal place for our homeless seniors. There will be supportive services there on site 24/7. There'll be case managers. The people there will be worked with to get jobs, and they are human beings. They will be going into Japantown and being purchasers. They will be going to the grocery stores. They will be going to some of the stores, and they will be permanent tenants in the neighborhood. So don't look as if you're pitting the people who might be living there as formerly homeless with tourists. They may contribute more, the people that were formerly homeless, to the Japantown community than any tourist who's only there for a week or two and is off. So I really hope that we can work together as a community partnership, and I hope that we could support this purchase of this hotel for people who were formerly homeless, many of whom will be seniors and people with disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Don Mokuao, and then Herschel Becker. Don, you have 2 minutes.
Hello, my name is Dawn Mokuao. I'm a third generation Japanese American District 9 resident. a really proud board member of NLF and a parent of two, raising my children in Japantown. When we learned of this possible sale, I was extremely appalled in the lack of transparency of how the city is handling this. When this project started as a temporary housing facility for individuals and families experiencing homelessness and housing insecurity, I too was very hopeful of this project. Experiencing it for an entire year, watching as we would drop our children off and pick them up from Nihonmachi, is really clear in terms of how the city manages this project, how the providers engage with the community or do not engage with the community that needs more support. The fact is that it feels very unsafe, and it's not about fear, it's about reality, it's about experiencing it firsthand. And it certainly has shifted the dynamic and the ambiance and what this district really is. In 2013, the Board of Supervisors passed a resolution, the Japantown Cultural Heritage and Economic Stability Strategy, which endorsed city policy to support our cultural and economic vibrancy. And again, this particular project goes against that. I'd like to strongly oppose this and have the city explore other properties in which there could be that win-win situation of finding safe, dignified housing for folks experiencing homelessness. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Herschel Pecker. I first off just wanted to thank the homelessness and supportive housing staff for their work on facing, homelessness has been a crisis in the city for as long as I've been alive. I grew up here in the Western Addition. I'm now raising my own child here. And I absolutely hear the concerns neighbors on this meeting have raised, like keeping the space safe for children and keeping good paying union jobs. But I'm here to speak in favor of the housing plan. Stable housing is a critical factor in breaking the cycle of poverty. And I would much rather see people having a chance at stable housing rather than living in tents on and around the Japantown overpass, which I've seen most, if not all of my life. I think the idea that not allowing people a place to break that cycle, to be able to cook for themselves, to be off the street and out of the elements, is the best way to reduce the number of drug users on the streets and the amount of feces on the streets. If we're concerned about cleanliness, this is a strong way to address that. We're not going to stop homelessness if we don't give people homes. And then, we've also, just having grown up here, we have numerous low-income and public housing projects in the neighborhood. It's the reason my family and my community has been able to stay here in San Francisco. In my time here, I've seen a big housing project that didn't serve the needs of its people replaced with better, safer housing. So I think it's only right to continue that process and extend that opportunity of stable housing to others where we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speakers will be Joel Matsura, David Takashima, and Risa Stack. We'll start with Joel. You have 2 minutes.
Great. Thank you very much for your time. I'm here speaking as a member of the community. I have 2 children that we have been both at Nihonmachi Little Friends as well as with Tomodachi at the Japantown Center. And we also are elementary school parents across the way in Western Addition. I don't think, after listening to everyone, I think that the anti-homeless sentiment that people are perhaps perceiving from the community is framing it up incorrectly. I think we all feel that anyone that is homeless or anyone that needs a place to live deserves to be able to do that and deserves to be able to have the opportunity to transition to something that is more secure, that is more dignified. But I think what we're looking at is, given the last year, with all the city's best intentions, and that's best intentions, we want to be able to provide support for all of the people of San Francisco, but you're putting children at risk. It's not just Nihonmachi Little Friends with the preschoolers. It's also all of the after school programs, all of the sports programs, all of the community programs that go to the center. There are a lot of children and they don't deserve to have best intentions accidentally fall through. Staffing was wrong that day. Funding fell through. There's going to be mistakes. and the expense is going to be at our kids. I think we should find another location that everybody can be supported. Everybody can feel safe. Everybody can have dignity. It's not really not supporting homelessness. We want to support homelessness. I want to support homelessness, but not at the expense of safety and security for everybody. These two populations, I think you got to look at, should they be in this close proximity? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
David Takashima.
I've already spoken.
Risa Stack, Yumi Kobayashi, and Yuko Walton. So Risa Stack, you have 2 minutes.
Hi, my name is Risa Stack, and I live several blocks from Japantown. I've raised my kids in this neighborhood. They grew up going to Japantown as small children, and eating the food and experiencing Japanese culture. And as a result, we have now traveled to Japan on vacation. We really enjoy the Japanese culture, and I think it has really served the community well, as it has allowed us to explore and enjoy and learn more about the Japanese culture. And I think that, as many people have said, this community has really struggled, Japantown, during the pandemic. We went out of our way to shop there, to go to the restaurants, to buy food from the markets during COVID, because we didn't want to support the community. I think the city should look to do things to support the community, and I think another alternative could be taking this hotel and trying to help bring tourism back. It is really important that this hotel exists, because it's a very important part. Japantown is a tourist destination, and we want people to be able to stay there and support those businesses. Tourists do spend a lot of money in Japantown, so I think it's very important that we keep the hotels close to Japantown. And it's a very important part of our community. We love it. We live here. We want to support the Japanese culture. I'm very disappointed because the first speaker noted that several important aspects were not taken into consideration with regards to this proposal. The Planning Commission and the 2013 resolution with regards to keeping the Japanese culture. So I think we should support the Japanese community in Japantown, and therefore we should not have this hotel be turned into supportive housing. We really need it to continue to support the Japantown, which is an important part of our community. And my family and I really enjoy it, and my children have grown up here, and they continue to go to Japantown as young adults and meet their friends there.
Thank you.
Okay, hi, my name is Yumi Kobayashi. I am a member of Japantown for Justice, as well as Nikkei Resistors. First and foremost, yes, housing is a human right, and everyone deserves affordable, accessible housing. Today, like many others, I'm solely here to criticize the city's process in announcing the supportive housing program, not in the vision and tangibility of affordable housing. The rush nature and disregard of affected communities, this includes Japantown members, workers, in the decision-making planning process, is a continuation of the violence the community saw before, throughout, and past redevelopment. An ideal Japantown includes all community members, right? Having access to housing and other critical support services. And everyone includes youth, elderly, disabled, and housed peoples. We are all deserving of resources necessary to thrive in the Japantown community. But because of how rushed this process is, there are so many questions, as you know, has been posed by many people thus far, that have yet to be discussed in the process, right? Some that I'd like to reiterate are whether the city can guarantee that this space will be committed to building and maintaining community relationships. And as mentioned before, the redevelopment era tourism model is not sustainable, but to address the economic concerns in our community, will the city commit to providing substantial long-term financial support to workers, small businesses, organizations, etc.? And if so, how? To conclude, the city has continuously failed unhoused peoples, and the city has continued to undermine communities of color. I understand the urgency, but the city needs to do better. This is relative to the process and to meeting the needs of all peoples involved. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Am I up?
You have 2 minutes, Yuka.
Okay, great. Thank you. Hi, my name is Yuka Walton, and I am a member of Japantown for Justice, a group of young people who are committed to ensuring Japantown's future. This meeting has been framed as a listening session, but what I want to know is, when is the commitment session? When is the city going to let us know the commitments they're making to our community to make supportive housing successful? We have a lot of trauma from the way the city silenced us during redevelopment. And given how this process has been so far, I'm not convinced that there's going to be a dialogue about commitments to our community. Japantown for Justice firmly believes housing is a human right. Like it literally makes me cry to say it. Like, housing is a human right, y'all. And in our ideal Japantown, unhoused members of our community have access to supportive housing, and the youth and elderly get the services they need. Everyone's needs are met and everyone thrives. But we know it takes a lot to make our ideal Japantown a reality. My first question is, can the city guarantee that the provider will consider themselves as part of our Japantown community and work towards strong community relationships with nonprofits and organizations? When talking about the temporary provider, Little Friends director Kathy Yamasu tonight said, there's no support, there's a disconnect with the community. What will the city do to ensure the provider of supportive housing is responsive to our community? My second concern is our businesses who are hurting. Many business owners have expressed concern over loss of tourism revenue. And in addition, 15 of Japantown small businesses have already closed during COVID. Will the city commit to providing substantial long-term support to small businesses like rent relief, fee waivers, tax exemptions, and other priorities named by our small business owners, so that we don't need to rely on tourism and other terrible ideas that are relics of redevelopment policy? I believe supportive housing needs to be prioritized because unhoused people are part of our Japantown community. And I also invest my whole heart into the preservation of Japantown for future generations. So the city needs to outline what is the collaborative process moving forward so that we can both provide supportive housing and support our Japantown's existence. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speakers will be James Wong, Stephanie Doi, and Paul Osaki. James Wong, you have 2 minutes. James Wong, now is time for public comment.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, you have 2 minutes.
Hi, my name is James Wong. I'm a third-generation native-born San Franciscan. I'm also one of the community optometrists that has been here in J-Town for the last 39 years on Buchanan. I really don't think this is the right location for a supportive housing for our homeless. If you look at what's been going on with the transitional housing that has been present already, there is no community engagement. They don't have anything to do with the Japantown community. They don't try to engage with the Japantown community. This is like taking a separate community and stabbing it right in the heart of the J-Town community, and it'll just tear us apart. I understand the need for supportive housing, but this is not a good location. You're really driving a stake into the heart of J-Town when you do this. Plus, we actually have a legacy restaurant in the building that cannot open and will not be able to open and will be forced to close if this hotel is permanently converted. And that's Mom's Cafe. It's one of the San Francisco's historic legacy businesses. It's been here for over 40 years. I just want to speak out for them. They will not be able to operate if they have this place converted to supportive housing. Anyway, I firmly am against this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, folks. My name is Stephanie Doi, and I'm a member of Japantown for Justice, a group of young folks committed to promoting Japantown's cultural sovereignty and ensuring Japantown's future. First and foremost, Japantown for Justice firmly believes that housing is a human right. In our ideal Japantown, unhoused members of our community have access to supportive and dignified housing and other services. Who are the candidates as providers of this service? Would our community be involved in the selection process so that is collaborative? And how will the city ensure long-term support and resources for everyone in our community to thrive? Second, this is a comment from 1974 during the city's forced redevelopment of Japantown. The kind of redevelopment that's going on right now is mainly to create a tourist trap, and we feel this is wrong because it drives out residents and small business people. Second, it puts a price tag on our culture and history, and we think that this is a very bad thing to do because it puts our culture on display for sale. End quote. We did not want our community to become a tourist trap, but the city gave us no choice but to put our culture on display for sale. Will the city commit to providing substantial long-term support to workers and small businesses who fear survival from their forced reliance on tourism? We refuse to be pit against a project that we truly believe on. We are calling on the city to be held accountable in its rushed and hushed implementation of this important program. The city has continuously failed unhoused folks, and the city has continued to obstruct communities of color's cultural sovereignty. We demand an end to both, and we would like a seat at the table to reimagine our collective future where everyone is housed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul Osaki, and then Kyle Oura. Paul Osaki, now is your 2 minutes for public comment.
Hello? Sorry, I'm challenged that way. My name is Paul Osaki, and Japantown has been my life for over 60 years, and I've worked in community nonprofits for 42 years. Currently, I work as the executive director of the Japanese Cultural and Community Center of Northern California. I supported the temporary housing at the Buchanan Hotel. It made perfect sense. The homeless needed a safe place to live, the hotel needed revenue, and our businesses were closed. It's a creative program, I get it. But I want to make clear that because we want to preserve our community, it doesn't mean that we want people sleeping on the street. That is not the debate right now. This plan is wrong for Japantown. You know, when I was growing up in Japantown in the 1960s, as you heard, redevelopment tore down our complete neighborhood. There were blocks just of sandlots and chain link fences. Thousands of families were removed from our community, and hundreds of businesses were forced to close. The city turned us into a tourist dependent destination, not by our choice. You know, there are two big hotels west of Van Ness Street, and they're right here in Japantown. It's not by accident. It was part of the city's redevelopment plan to have to support a neighborhood dependent on tourism. In large part, you know, the owners, when they purchased it, they knew this was a successful hotel, over 80% occupancy. They knew the tourism that it drove here, and that's why they bought it. You know, as it said in 2003, the city made a promise to this community that it would support us by city policy to ensure our preservation and economic vitality. The city can't break one promise to a community to serve another. I mean, enough's enough. We've been through that before. We've seen this happen before. The city can't implement its will on a community just to serve its own purpose and its own needs. You know, this can't happen anymore. And that's what really pisses me off about
Afraid we're at
what's
time.
happening right now.
Thank
Really,
you so much,
enough's
sir.
enough. You know, the city.
Thank you. We're
and
at
the
time right
owners
now.
are pitting us against the whole.
Hi, my name is Kyle Ora, and I'm against this project. You know, I've been in some of your positions, you know, from the city. You know, I've worked in acquisitions and development of supportive housing and homeless. And what I always did was when I looked at a potential acquisition, I look at, you know, proximity to childcare, knowing that there's Megan's Law and different interpretations of that in terms of sex offenders, and also safety and community backlash. And I think even though that you might have a great building here, 131 units, that's awesome. but also take into account the cultural and the community aspect. This is right in the heart of Japantown, and it's a very trafficked place with children next door. You have seniors lining up for meals at the Kimochi luncheon program, and they're wrapping around the streets. And this is one of the last Japantowns left in the country, and so I just want to say, let's do projects that will keep Japantown alive for future generations. And so that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speakers will be Mike Lagomarsino, Diane Matsuda, Karen Kai. We'll start with Mike Lagomarsino. Mike, now is your turn for public comment. You have 2 minutes. We will go to our next speaker, Diane Matsuda.
Hello. My name is Diane Matsuda, and I'm a resident of Japantown and attorney for the Asian Pacific Islander Legal Outreach. Our clients live, work, and participate here in Japantown and throughout the city. I'm deeply concerned and dissatisfied with the way in which your office has provided notice to this community about the proposed sale of the Hotel Buchanan. I was curious to see if this was a common practice of your agency to push things along without community engagement. So I participated in your meeting last night regarding the property at 5630 Mission, and then listened to the meeting regarding 3061 16th Street. The members of the public commenting at both meetings were clearly and thoroughly informed about the proposed purchase of the buildings in their neighborhood, and it appeared from their comments that there was clear input, knowledge, and engagement all along for many months. So why is it that we were not informed of what you wanted to do in Japantown until 2 days before it was published in the newspaper and just days before this meeting? And we are on the same timeline as the other properties. Are we not worthy of the same respect of having many meetings to discuss this? Did you not think that community input from Japantown was not important? Did you stop to think in conducting your analysis of recommending this property, what type of impact it would have to a community that has repeatedly been removed from our place in this community by the government? Because you did not inform us, we had to take it upon ourselves to inform others what you were doing in our community. A petition was created 2 days ago, and as of this afternoon, we have 2,300 members of the public who have signed the petition, 10,000 views, and 710 shares, demanding that you allow us to participate in a process that is not already a done deal and that you show us some respect. Please read the comments. They are real and serious and are posted by individuals who feel very strongly about their community. The city has pledged to implement measures.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We're at time. Thank you. Appreciate your comments.
Thank you. My name is Karen Kai, and I've been a longtime Japantown activist. I really appreciate Diane's work and her comments on the process because it is definitely flawed. We don't have a real dialogue here. We haven't had real information. And so we've dug in for ourselves to find out what's going on and what the impacts will be if this resource is gone, if this resource is replaced with a program that is already modeled on and is an extension of what is currently being used during the pandemic. And it's very troubling to think that the preschoolers, the seniors are going to be possibly just put in the position of having to deal with that without any meaningful dialogue, without any real alternatives, without really saying what should be done here. Because maybe given where it's located, given who is affected, it should not be there. That's personally my opinion. I don't think it is in the right place. I want to say something about tourism too. Yes, tourism was one of the effects of redevelopment, but our small business base is honest. It has integrity. Our small business supports our cultural community, and we need to stand up and support them, not allow destabilization on a sped up timeline that is unfair and is not designed to really treat us with respect and the dignity that we, our merchants, our children, and our elders deserve. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, we have Buchanan's Workers, who I can see are waving in the chat. You have 2 minutes. Buchanan's Workers, do you have a representative to speak?
Hi, my name is Jose Lee. I want to speak on behalf of Buchanan's Workers. I want to say this. We are working at the Buchanan's Hotel for many, many years, and the pandemic hit us hard, very, very hard. But we are surviving. Now we have a devastating news. The city wants to buy our hotel and convert it permanently to a homeless shelter and take away our jobs. We don't understand. The city is supposed to protect us, protect our good job, and not destroying it. We don't know what the city wants to achieve, fixing the homeless problem. They do not realize that eliminating our jobs, we are not going to be able to pay our rent, and we will become homeless ourselves. Therefore, the city is not fixing a problem. It's creating a bigger one. So please reconsider what you are doing and do not buy the Buchanan Hotel.
Yeah. Mi nombre es Francisco Godoy. Tengo más de 25 años de trabajar en el hotel. Y esto ha sido el soporte de mi familia. ¿Qué pasaría si pierdo el trabajo?
My name is Francisco
¿O significaría
Godoy.
que no podría pagar mi renta, mis gastos?
My name is
Y
Francisco
eso
Godoy.
crearía un
What is it
problema
going to
en mi
happen
hogar
to me if I cannot
y
work?
seríamos personas sin casas.
I will lose the support that I need to pay the taxes, to pay the rent. I will suffer because I won't be able to pay for the housing. I've been working for 25 years. My name is Francisco Godoy.
Hola, mi nombre es Alejandra González, soy trabajadora de Hotel Bucanas por más de 12 años. Todas las trabajadores estamos muy tristes porque solo están pensando en las personas sin hogar, pero no piensan que somos personas que tenemos 30, 20, 15 años trabajando y que somos el sustento de nuestros hogares y qué va a pasar con nosotros. Muchas de las personas que están
Thank you. I'm afraid we're at time.
Momentito,
Thank you
por
very
favor.
much.
Gracias, un momento.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alejandra Gonzalez. I just want to say that I'm a worker at the Buchanan Hotel for 12 years, and people don't think about us. I've been working 30, 20, 15 years, and you guys just think about the people without homes, but don't think about other people like us.
Thank you for your comment.
Gracias por su comentario.
Our next speakers will be Daryl Higashi, Jack Kuliker, Ed Center. We'll start with Daryl Higashi.
Hi, my name is Daryl Higashi. I'm a third generation Japanese American, and I've worked in this area of community development, affordable housing, supportive housing for the last 35 plus years. My passion and my participation of most of my career has been to look for solutions where community-based housing can be a win-win for communities, whether it's in Chinatown, the Tenderloin, South of Market, or in Honolulu, where I grew up. My comments are as follows, and the people who are representing the city are also people that I know professionally, and some of these folks are my friends. So what I'm about to say is just the way I see it. One, I agree with many of the speakers that for government or for this process to move forward, there's got to be trust and accountability. The fact that the community has voiced concern that noticing was short, information has been vague, does not lead to an environment of trust and accountability. I ask that the city leaders, as part of this program, including the mayor and our supervisor, Dean President, step forward and promise that there will be a process of trust and accountability. Otherwise, communication will break down quickly between the community and City Hall. Number two, the big picture. I think the Board of Supervisors, especially including our supervisor, needs to come forward and explain what is the big strategy that the city has. If the strategy is to just do a series of 3 or 4 or 5 of these hotels, supportive housing, then it's failed. It really needs to show that it's going to create a process and a strategy to make sure supportive housing is also provided in all 11 districts. The most important question I have for tonight is that I hear that people are concerned about the economic survival of Japantown. I ask again that this team, the mayor and supervisor, please have Ted Egan, your economist, and your team of economists.
I'm sorry, sir, we're at time. Thank you for your public comment. Thank you so much.
An economic plan. Thank you.
My apologies. It's been brought to our attention that we didn't get to all of Buchanan's workers. So the Buchanan workers that didn't get a chance to speak, you will each have 2 minutes. I don't remember where we left off, but I think you do. Thank you.
Soy trabajadora, soy Juana Marina Palma Tejada, soy trabajadora del Buchanan, he trabajado por 24 años. Necesito, por favor, que no vendan el hotel, porque nos quedamos sin trabajo. No sean así, pónganse su mano en su conciencia y no vendan el hotel.
This is Miss Tejada. I've been working at the Buchanan Hotel for 24 years. I'm asking you to please not sell the hotel. This is my way of living. Por favor, please do not sell the hotel. If you sell the hotel, I will be without work.
Sí, mi nombre es Guadalupe Fernández. Tengo 7 años trabajando ahí. Pues no me gustaría que lo vendieran porque pues no vamos a tener para pagar nuestra renta ni para pagar nuestro sustento. Más aparte, soy madre soltera y pues necesito trabajar. Gracias.
My name is Guadalupe, and I've been working here for 7 years at the Buchanan Hotel. I ask you please not to sell the hotel. We need to pay rent. We need to have support, financial support to live with. I'm a single mother. I need this job.
Yo soy Reina Belis, trabajo en el Hotel Buchanan. Necesitamos que no los vendan el hotel porque los dejan sin trabajo. Si no, los vamos a quedar en la calle nosotros. Gracias.
I am Miss Belize. I work at the Buchanan Hotel. I'm asking you to please not sell.
Hola, mi nombre es.
If you sell the hotel, then we will be on the streets without a job.
Hola, mi nombre es Leobardo García. Desde que empezó esto, le he hecho frente a arriesgando mi vida. Le he hecho frente a limpiar en la limpieza del hotel. Hemos estado echándole ganas y estoy molesto, triste. ¿Por qué? O sea, ¿por qué no piensan en nosotros?
Sí, un momentito, por favor. My name is Leobardo Garcia, and ever since all of this started, this has been bad for me. I work at the hotel. I've given my life at the hotel. I'm very upset and I'm very sad to know of the things that are happening.
Hello, welcome back. Hi, Huy Lan Quan. Buchanan Hotel tụi
Hi, my name is Hui Lang. I am working at the Hotel Vulcano for more than 14 years.
Okay.
¿Quién sigue? Yeah, go.
Yeah, my name is Silapapa. Yeah, I work at the hotel with about 12 years.
Sigue. Solamente tu nombre y cuántos años trabajas.
Mi nombre es Katie Colindres y trabajo por 6 años en el hotel.
My name
Y necesitamos el trabajo, que no vendan el hotel.
My name is Katie Colindres. I've been working 6 years at the hotel. We need the work. I ask you to not sell the hotel.
Mi nombre es Aleida Aguilar. Trabajo por 6 años en Ganan Hotel. Necesitamos conservar el trabajo. Gracias.
My name is Elaida Guardal. I've been working at the hotel, Buchanan Hotel, for 6 years. We need to keep this job. We cannot be without the job.
Is that everyone who wanted to speak?
¿Esos son todas las personas que quieren hablar? ¿Hay alguien más?
Por favor, le pedimos al supervisor que tiene el proyecto que piense en las personas que estamos por trabajando de más de 20 o 15 o 30 años. Dependemos de nuestro trabajo porque nos da seguro médico. Nos sería muy difícil ir a conseguir otro trabajo.
Ok, un momentito, por favor.
Estos tiempos han sido muy difíciles para nosotros.
Un momentito.
Y sería otra vez muy duro conseguir trabajo
supervisor,
hay muchas mujeres que todavía no tienen el tiempo la edad para retirarse. Ahorita estamos sin seguro médico, sin beneficio. El desempleo está a punto de terminar. Yo creo que si nos quedamos sin trabajo, yo creo que a ver si la ciudad nos consigue hogares a más de 40 trabajadores con familia.
I would like to ask
Deberían tener un poco de consideración también, por favor. Y también por la comunidad japonesa. Nuestros hijos también se están educando en las escuelas de ahí.
Ok, un momentito, por favor.
Por favor.
Un momentito. I would like to ask the supervisor to consider this project. I've been working here for already 15 years, just like other people that have jobs here. We depend on these jobs. If we don't have these jobs, many of us will need to go look for other jobs. How are we going to get those other jobs? We need to support our family members. Many of us also will have to be on unemployment. Will the city look for jobs for us? Will they give us other jobs?
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else who wants to speak?
Gracias por sus comentarios. ¿Alguien más que quiere hablar?
No, everybody has spoken already. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your public comment.
Gracias por sus comentarios públicos.
Thank you. Our next speakers will be Jack K, Ed Center, and Linda Mihara. We'll start with Jack K. Jack, now is the time for public comment. You have 2 minutes. Your opposition has been noted in the chat. Ed Center.
Hi, my name is Ed, and I live just across the footbridge from Japantown. Excuse me. I'm a father of 2 kids, so we're raising them in Japantown. We're patronizing the businesses almost every day, including takeout during the quarantine. My kids love their spam musubi. My older son is a graduate of Nihon Machi Little Friends, and my younger son is currently at Chibi-chan. And with the information I currently have, I'm speaking out in favor of the conversion to public supportive housing. I don't believe we can solve the homelessness issue if we don't provide housing options. And I think that our community and our neighborhood can do its fair share. I'm really struck by the voices of the Nihon Machi Little Friends parents and staff and the unfair burden that they've had to hold. But I think that that is something that we can demand from the city. You shouldn't have to clean up what's going on over there. You shouldn't have to worry about the safety of your children. And so we can demand from the city that they provide services, security, et cetera, cleanup crews, so that it doesn't become a part of your responsibility. I think that we have unhoused neighbors, and I would like to see them housed. And I think we can do our part, and we can come up with solutions, including demanding that the city provide good paying, stable jobs to anybody who was working at the Buchanan Hotel. We're a creative community, and I think that we can find creative solutions to support kids, businesses, community members, and our unhoused community members who will be housed if this passes. I really appreciate the opinions of everyone who agrees with me and doesn't. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Linda Mihara. I am a 3rd-generation Japanese American. I grew up in Japantown. My family's been a part of Japantown for over 100 years. We've gone through the internment, and my family returned back to Japantown to start a business. And they've also been through the redevelopment. As a business owner, I am very concerned about this project, mainly because the process is flawed. Why did we just get notification last week that this meeting was happening? Why did we not know? Why was there no outreach to anybody in the community about this project? We've got, as articulated before, Nihonmachi Little Friends right next door to this hotel. The hotel is key. It's one of 2 hotels in Japantown. You really need to think in terms of the city's promise to preserve the culture of Japantown and Japantown itself. It's gone through so much that's been articulated with other speakers here. But if you take one hotel away from Japantown, it's a key hotel. It really is going to just be a tremendous disaster. I'm mostly concerned about the process when the Board of Soups hears, hopefully, all of these comments. I'm really hoping that these comments will be brought forth to the Board of Soups. They are the ones that are going to make the decision whether to purchase this hotel or not. I'm afraid, because of the shortness of the notice of this particular meeting, and I appreciate you mentioning that we're going to have a second meeting, but are the Board of Soups going to be able to hear everybody's feedback and concerns? Yes, since we've had the hotel house the current situation, we have seen needles in our doorway and
I'm afraid we're
all
at
the other things
time.
I mentioned
Thank you
before.
so much for your comments.
Thank you for letting me speak.
Our next speakers will be David Darling, Mark Carrington. First, we'll start with David Darling. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Dave Darling. I've lived in San Francisco for 33 years and almost 20 years in Japantown. Much has already been said this evening, and I appreciate many of the comments, including some in favor of the proposal. But they're missing something really important, which is that this proposal can't be a referendum on whether or not we want to solve homelessness. That is not the issue. Housing is a basic human right. Living in a safe and civil environment is also a fundamental human right. This proposal is the right idea in the wrong location. This has been empirically and painfully proven over this past year. Almost 80 years ago, within a block of this hotel, peaceful, law-abiding US citizens of this very community were ordered to be herded like cattle to desert prisons during the Second World War. The people in charge, by misuse of executive order, may have thought this was a good idea at the time. Again, in the 60s, as was mentioned earlier tonight, the people in charge thought redevelopment was a good idea at the time. I'm saddened that today's powers seem unaware that they would be screwing the same community again by ignoring Article 2, 7, and 10 of the city's planning code. Why have a planning code if not for reconciling appropriateness of locations for such well-meaning initiatives? The intent might be good, but this change of use in this specific location within this very small, fragile district is a very bad idea. Why not Lombard Street? This use has already wreaked havoc on this community, and as you've heard tonight, and from my perspective, this proposal is at best corporate charity to the property owner from the city, and at the expense of workers, children, seniors, small family-owned businesses, and a fragile cultural community of color. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Carrington, you have 2 minutes for public comment. Mark Carrington, now is your time.
I have had my opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Michael Lamb.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm a property owner in Japantown for the last 18 years. During the 18 years, there are now and then homeless people go into my property, and some would stay at the floor, some will hide behind the exit doors, and it is kind of disturbing. They come into my building, and it's obviously some of them have mental problems, and some of them are drug addicts. So it just scared me. I didn't quite like it. Japantown is supposed to be very safe. And recently, I started to study the homeless problem. I read a documentary by Christopher Rufo on the San Francisco homeless problem, and also the homeless problem in Seattle, Los Angeles, San Francisco. It boiled down to a problem that I realized is similar to what I saw by homeless going to my building. 45% of these people have mental problems, and 36% of them are drug addicts. So I'm afraid if you convert the building for these homeless people, then if you apply 80% to 131 units, then they're going to have 100 homeless people sticking around there that will have mental problem or drug addict. And I'm not too sure Japantown is equipped to handle this. And so I really oppose the building to convert into homeless housing. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're muted, Denny.
My apologies. Edward Schrager, Amanda Jones, Itzel Estrada. The next person is Edward Schrager.
Hey, I've already spoken, so I yield my time to someone else. Thank you, though.
Thank you. Amanda Jones, Itzel Estrada.
Already spoken. Thank you.
All right. Itzel Estrada. Itzel Estrada, you have 2 minutes. In that case, we have in the chat Anand Singh, Jamie Totsubo, and Lore Matoba.
Already spoken.
Thank you, Anand. Jamie Totsubo. Who I believe also has already spoken. Lore Matoba.
Hi, my name is Lori Matoba, and I'm a fourth generation Japantown resident, and I'm related to a 15-year-old business owner here in Japantown. I've worked in the community for most of my life. I don't want to go over what a lot of people have already said in opposition to this matter, but I'm opposed to the sale of the Hotel Buchanan for many of the same reasons, but two of them are one, that there was little process for community input or feedback. And I think originally there was only this one meeting scheduled, and then it was rushed, I think, out of community concern to quickly add a second. There's just too many questions and no answers and no community dialogue. This reminds me of the forced removal of my great-grandparents and grandparents during World War II. And then as they returned to rebuild their lives and business here in Japantown, redevelopment forced them to move their home and business. And again, forced many other people, families, and small businesses out of Japantown. And many of them never came back. Secondly, I think the sale of the Buchanan will also have a similar detrimental effect on the future of Japantown. The businesses here are already struggling due to the pandemic and health restrictions, but the loss of the over 45,000 visitors and tourists each year to Japantown is something that can never be replaced if the sale is to go through. Please consider taking this hotel out of the package. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speakers will be Olga Graham, Carolina Alves, and Ray and Susan Ju. We'll start with Olga Graham. You have 2 minutes.
Hello, everyone. I don't have good video coverage. I'm traveling right now. I really love Japantown. I've been going there for over a decade. I know a lot of people there. 2 weeks ago, so long story short, 2 weeks ago I was attacked by a homeless man who was injecting an underage girl with drugs. He threatened to stab me, and he went after me twice. I posted it on Nextdoor. It's very disheartening. I had an appointment at Japantown that day. I spoke to a lot of women I know for a very long time about what's going on. And people are very upset. They're afraid for their lives. It's happening every day. Japantown has stationed police officers. They're paying them a lot of money as off-duty police officers. To date, I spoke to 10 police officers. Everybody knows what's going on. Hotel really badly affect the community. I lived in Marina for over a decade. We owned multiple properties. We've seen what hotels did to the communities. I've seen people selling homes under its value. We sold our house under its value. We had homeless people ODing under our windows on the street. I have hundreds of pictures and videos. And that's the future of Japantown if this project will be a permanent thing in Japantown. People are very upset. Please don't let this happen. This is really terrible. I've seen so many people on drugs. People are afraid to be outside. They're afraid to have their business there. People who live in Japantown told me that the homeless people target, especially elderly, who are getting beaten up. People in Japantown don't want to speak up. They're afraid to be victimized if they speak up. So I have to speak up on behalf of my friends. Thank you so much for your time. Please don't let this happen.
Thank you for your comment.
Carolina? Carolina Alves, this is your time for public comment. You have 2 minutes. I'm sorry we missed your comment. Ray and Susan Ju.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us on this town hall session. We are alumni of sorts. Both of our kids went through Neomachi Little Friends and the preschool. And what attracted to us was the safety and the culture that we felt Neomachi Little Friends could deliver. You've heard from various parents, staff, and even the executive director on what the current state is today, which is very disheartening because that safety and the culture is now being compromised with the current state of affairs of the usage of the hotel today. And isn't that hotel today being managed by the city and county of San Francisco? If so, that's a preview of the potential coming attractions if this goes into a full-blown homeless shelter. So for that reason, I'm opposed to this program and this project moving forward. Secondly, I would also like to comment on what you've heard many people talk about already, the transparency or lack thereof of getting the community involved. I was a member of a team that designed and constructed 2 medical facilities in San Francisco. It took us over 4 years of going through public hearings, getting the community involved, the planning commission, the fire department, the police department, for everyone to come around the table and have multiple public hearings. And here we are today, briefly just being told, come to this, and a decision is going to be made very rapidly. Doesn't make sense. What is this program and the city hiding, or why are they trying to push it through? Lastly,
Thank you very much for your comment. We're at time. Thank you.
Right.
Gilbert Eisenberg, you are next. Gilbert Eisenberg, this is public comment. You have 2 minutes. Sorry to have missed your comment. Natalie Kitchen and then Susan Solomon. First will be Natalie Kitchen. I'm sorry if that's Natalie trying to speak, we're having trouble hearing you. I believe we missed you then, Natalie. Susan Solomon, you have 2 minutes for public comment.
Thank you very much. I first want to say how very important it's been to hear the perspective of all the other speakers tonight, and it points to the necessity for having this kind of forum so that people can express their positions. It's certainly been helpful to me. So I've lived in about 3 blocks from the Buchanan Hotel for most of my life, both as a kid and as an adult, and I raised my kids here. It appears that there's widespread agreement that that homelessness is a devastating problem that we need to address. And I just want to put a little more of a face on homelessness. I'm a recently retired teacher, union member, and there are about over 2,000 homeless children in the San Francisco Unified School District. They're unhoused and housing insecure. There are educators who are homeless or have been homeless. I personally know of one who lived in a school for a while where she worked, and another who lived in her car with her 2 children. That's because San Francisco is so extremely expensive. We have to address this issue as a community, as we're trying to do tonight. I have to say, as an active union member and a big time supporter of Unite Here Local 2, I'm shocked that they haven't been brought in to discuss this. They, especially considering the sacrifices that the workers have made. Everybody needs a seat at the table, the workers, the community, those of all of us who support providing services for homeless and housing insecure people. And I look forward to seeing a way to make this process more thorough, as other people have said, so that we can come to a solution that will help our homeless and our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Angel Gao and Parmeshwaran Naikar. Angel Gao is first, and then Parmeshwaran. Angel Gao, this is public comment. You have 2 minutes. I'm sorry, we missed you. Parmeshwaran Naikar, this is public comment. You have 2 minutes.
Yes, this is Parmeshwaran Naikar. I work at the Buchanan Hotel. My co-workers were there right now, I saw them. And I received a short notice, like I've been working there 10, 11 years and received a notice a week from this meeting that there's a meeting and a letter from this hotel, which really, really, kind of sucks. I don't know how to say this. And this meeting I got 2 days ago that there's a meeting going on, which especially for a worker, and their hotel has been sold, it's really, really sucks, seriously. And right now I'm unemployed. I'm not working. And if the hotel is sold, then what will my future hold? All these years I've worked so hard at the hotel. I'm not sure what the high-shot people are thinking. The big bosses up there. I'm really saddened by this news. All these years I've worked for Union Local 2 also, and 856 also. I'm not sure what they're thinking. I mean, for homeless is good. I mean, one way is good, but all these workers, what will happen to them? And the community there, the school there, the supermarket there. It's I'm really upset, basically. Okay, thank you guys for this speech.
Thank you for your public comment.
Our next speakers will be Keith Howell, May Chai, and Connie Ford. Keith Howell, you have 2 minutes.
Huh? Actually,
Keith Howell, public comment. I'm sorry, missed you. May Chai? May Chai, this is public comment. You have 2 minutes. All right, Connie Ford, Peter Hirschberg, and Thomas Farron are next 3 in line. Connie Ford, you have 2 minutes. All right, Peter Hirschberg.
I already spoke, but I just want to reemphasize that there's global investment and interest in building inclusive growth in this community. And Japantown is really the core to our entrepot to Asia and Asian trade. We can really strengthen our whole economy and drive inclusive growth if we work on this. I think there's been a lot of opposition tonight to just doing a thoughtless proposal. This is a terrific community that wants to work together and build something great. Let's
Thank you, sir. We're trying to give everybody a chance to speak tonight.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
Thank you. Thomas Farron, Joyce Oishi.
Can you hear me? This is Thomas Farron.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I don't want to repeat what everybody else has said. I did some research on this problem, and I'm sure this makes for a good solution for housing homeless from the perspective of the city. But from the perspective of Japantown, I think it's an egregious price to pay. You're replacing tourists who could amount to 50 to 70,000 people visiting that area in the course of a year with 131 residents. And this is going to have a major impact on the businesses in Japantown, all of which are pretty much small businesses. And in my research, I found out that the company that owns, or the group that owns the hotel, has split off a part of that and has developed 6 condominiums. And then they went through the city and they were able to separate the parking garage from the hotel so they can operate that as a commercial parking lot, which probably suits their residents of their condominiums. Furthermore, I discovered that the man who heads the investment group that owns a hotel heads the investment group that owns the Japanese center malls. And this frightens me a little because I wonder what his intention is to get rid of a hotel which supports the tenants of his malls to such an extent. And I was wondering if the city has any further information on any future plans for those malls, because the current owners have owned it for 15 years, which is a long time for any group to own a real estate, a mall of that nature. So I think Japantown should be very concerned about being at the mercy of a couple of investment groups that have so much
Thank you,
influence.
sir. We're at time. Thank you so much for your public comment.
Thank you.
Next for comment is Joyce Oishi.
Good evening. I'm Joyce Oishi, and I care deeply about Japantown. I have also admired the supportive housing project on Essex Street. My 2 kids attended Nihonmachi Little Friends preschool and the NLF after school program as well. Like the over 100 NLF families that come to Japantown on a daily basis, we feel a great deal of gratitude to NLF and to the Japantown community that gives my family a sense of place and a sense of community, a community so rich in resources, preschools, religious institutions, language academies, cultural art programs, specialized retail. Japantown makes San Francisco a great place for families. And how often do you hear that? This is a community that has struggled to remain vital in its support of families, and that is very important. And that is a very important contribution to San Francisco, supporting families. Please note that Japantown is also noted for its very large senior community supported by nonprofit organizations that make affordable housing possible for these elders. However, I have heard nothing that suggests the management of the temporary supportive housing project acknowledges the multifaceted richness and hard-fought community that survives and thrives today. I've heard nothing to suggest that management understood it was next door to a preschool, or that it wanted to be a responsible partner in the community. I've not heard anything to suggest that the city had thoughtful consideration as to how impacts of a new use of the Buchanan Hotel could be mitigated. I'd like to echo earlier comment. The city needs to undertake an economic impact study, perhaps an environmental impact study, so that it can put its best face forward. And until then, I think there's going to be a huge rallying cry in support of NLF and the treasured institutions of Japantown to ensure it's safe and thriving.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you for your public comment. We're at time.
Our next speaker is David Ashizawa.
Hello, are you there?
Hi, David. You have 2 minutes.
Hello, so I am David Ashizawa. I am a fifth generation Japanese American. I live and work in Japantown. I support homeless housing. The first year that we did this trial thing in the neighborhood, I was supportive of it. However, in this last year, we have witnessed multiple break-ins at our store, violent assaults, open air drug use, public defecation, urination, and arson. This cannot be allowed to go on. Just this morning, I had to clean up graffiti on our store, and just this afternoon, a homeless gentleman with rebar pieces was threatening a woman trying to leave our store, and I had to confront him. It is not the first time I have had to confront people with weapons. This cannot be allowed to go through. I can only assume if the city planners decide to go through with this, their end game is the economic decimation of the Japantown merchants, and ultimately for the goal of destroying the political power of the Japanese American community, and for the second time in history, cleansing our neighborhood.
Thank you for your comment.
Our next speaker is Nick Large.
Hello, that is me. Hello, my name is Nick Large. I am a fourth generation Japanese American, and I'm also a senior policy analyst with a nonprofit called Home Base. And so we support communities in their response to homelessness, and sometimes we advise on
We have a dinner reservation
projects
at
like this.
7.
There we go. I've also worked on and off with the Fred T. Korematsu Institute, ensuring that a lot of the history that people are talking about on this call is known, is documented, and is out there in the public. I know a bunch of you, I've seen a bunch of you at various community meetings. You might recognize my face or my annoying voice. And I wanted to try and fill in a few details and maybe some kind of facts and things about this project that people, don't know, and that HSH, I wish you kind of shared some of this information. But the site, and you can correct me if any of this is wrong, it's not going to be a shelter, it's going to be a permanent supportive housing building, which is very different than a shelter. You have very different populations than, a quarantine and isolation site. So I think that's kind of one thing I think everyone really has to keep in mind, right? Is, it's probably going to be a bunch of seniors, maybe people, with their rockers or in wheelchairs or something like that. And another kind of fact that I really wanted to make sure people understand is that the property owner, the hotel owner, submitted a request. They responded to a request for information. So the hotel owner, the property owner, is taking the initiative to do this sale. So, even if the city doesn't purchase the property, something that, everyone talking about the neighborhood and the community and the economic viability really needs to keep in mind is that the property owner seems to want to sell. So if the city doesn't buy this property, there's a lot of private entities that are going to be willing to put in a lot more money. So that's something we really, really need to think about, because I think that's something that is not being kind of understood in this scenario. So thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Clint Taura.
Hi, I'm Clint Tauda, and I operate a business across the street from the hotel. First, I'd like to say that I really appreciate the strength of the hotel workers tonight for speaking up. I'm deeply opposed to this project. As a graduate of Nihonmachi Little Friends and a parent of a Little Friends student, I echo the sentiments of past speakers on the issue of safety for the current and future families of Little Friends. As a former board member of the Japantown Task Force and a participant in the process to create the JHS and the Better Neighborhoods Plan, I believe this project is a big slap in the face to all cultural districts in this city. It tells all cultural districts in the entire city that spent years of blood, sweat, and tears to create a strategy to preserve and protect the integrity of their district that their efforts were for naught. I believe this project is a revenge tactic of the current property owner towards the previous one. And I don't think the city nor Japantown should have anything to do with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, this is Emily Cohen from the Department of Homelessness and Supportive Housing again. And I just wanted to pause here and thank you all so much for your thoughtful comments. I think this has been a really informative and helpful discussion. And as I said during my presentation, just the beginning. We have been here for about 3 hours now. I know we still have lots more people who want to give public comment. And so we do need to close out the meeting, but I do want to invite everyone back on September 8th for a second meeting, a next meeting. And I will put into the chat the Zoom link where you can register for that meeting now. And additionally, we have the email addresses of everyone who registered here. So we will be following up with folks with the registration link for the second meeting. We really want to continue this dialogue, continue this important comments. We want to hear more from the community. So we will have the second meeting. You can also submit comments or questions in writing via email. And if we could drop that email address in the chat as well, that would be great. And then finally, when you close out of the Zoom meeting this evening, there'll be a survey that you can fill out or a question if you have additional questions and comments. We know that this was very much a listening session tonight, and we had a great opportunity to hear from so many of you. We will be collecting the themes of your questions. Many of you have been submitting questions in the chat or emailing us questions during this meeting. We will be consolidating many of those themes and then emailing out answers to many of those questions. I think a lot of them are along the same lines. There are definitely some reoccurring themes. So we want to get some information out to folks, and we will continue to do that. We will provide information at the next meeting, but also want to continue this opportunity to listen and hear from the community. Before we sign out, I do want to see if Director McSpadden or Supervisor Preston have any additional remarks that they would like to make before we wind down.
I just want to thank everyone for their comments and to say that this is a process. We will not have a sale in place before the next meeting. We really are going to spend the next few weeks or however long it takes to really engage with the community. I appreciate everyone's patience tonight. I'm very impressed by the number of people who came out to speak, and the conversation will definitely continue. So thank you.
And I would just echo that and thank you all for being part of this. And I think it's extremely important that this kind of meeting happens and the follow-up meeting, and that there be a real and meaningful conversation and opportunity for input from the community before any decisions are made, and also with the hotel workers who are impacted, as well as the entire Japantown community. So really, I know for folks to make the time and spend several hours on this is a big commitment, and also especially for those who weren't able to speak up. I do want to thank HSH for all their work to try to find sites for permanently supportive housing, and also for facilitating these sessions. And I've been told by Mayor's Office and HSH that as was stated at the beginning, that these announcements of proposed sites are not done deals, and that there will be an opportunity for this public input before any final decisions are made. So procedurally right now, it's really up to HSH and Mayor's Office how they want to move forward in hosting these meetings and getting the input, but we are staying in close contact both with HSH and with a lot of you who've reached out, particularly Japantown leaders and homeless advocates. And we'll continue to stay in close touch. And then if this is proposed at the board, then the ball would be more in the Board of Supervisors court as to whether to approve it. So I want to encourage everyone to, regardless of your views, to stay engaged on this, and also invite folks to contact our office. You can always reach me. Best way is prestonstaff@sfgov.org, and many of you have reached out already. So thank you all for participating and for speaking up. It's good to get all the input. Appreciate it.
Thank you all very much, and we look forward to continuing this conversation, and we will see you. I'm sure we'll speak before that with many of you, but definitely encourage you to join us on the 8th.
Emily, can you please check the chat? There's a woman that is a senior of 90 years of age, and she's been waiting 3 hours to make a comment. Can you please hear her?
Absolutely. Go
Thank
right
you.
ahead. Yep.
Yay. Am I on? Yeah. My name is Marjorie E. Maizumi Fletcher. I'm a 92-year-old second-generation Japanese American. I have worked in this community for 31 years in a building 2 doors away from the hotel. I live in Japantown, and my temple is 2 blocks away from my home. My entire life is here. I could not believe that your office was going to take away the hotel without letting us know. We need more than a week to let our community know what will happen to our community, especially for people like me who do not know how to use social media. During World War II, my family was incarcerated in a detention camp just because we were Japanese. This was an order by the government. Then when we tried to come back to San Francisco after the war, the government took our homes away again. Now our office, now your office, another city government office is trying to take away an important economic piece of our community. Please stop the destruction you are going to cause. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. We will close now. I appreciate this last comment, and I'm glad we were able to get you in to close us out. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening, and we will talk again very soon.